All right, so these are like the 3 lessons, really kind of like 5 lessons that I learned from Alex Hermozi's webinar, $100 million leads book launch, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal, right? But then also kind of like scouring the internet and Facebook groups and posts, like everyone has their varying opinions on it, like whether it was great, not so great, that he was he just breaking down the Dream 100. Like, I've heard this stuff before, and I was just like, so I wanted to chat through it, right? So I did a live with a friend of mine, Odell Bazell, and then I did a social post that kind of had some really interesting comments as well. And so the first thing that I learned and just kind of processed was just run the play, right? Just run the play. Just do the thing. And so did he teach anything groundbreaking? I think it depends on what stage you are in your life, how long you have been selling your thing, your product, your service, if you've been in masterminds or training programs or any of the things before. And so there were some things that I learned, but a lot of things I'd already learned, but that wasn't even like a bad thing. Why? Because webinars teach the why, they don't teach the how. And so I thought it was kind of fascinating to see some of those comments online, which is like, he didn't dive deep into X, Y, Z. I'm like, this is a webinar and it's only 90 minutes. And so, but there was a brilliance in his simplicity, right? And so the brilliance to me was just how simple his webinar was. It got you the why, right? The information, but more so, it was just like almost, instead of me teaching you, let me show you the process of how it worked for me and my team and how we built this thing, how you even ended up here. Let me break down that process for you. And so the brilliance in that was literally the simplicity, because so many of us do not run the play. We join all these programs, we've years of formal higher ed education, and we're stagnant and we're not where we need or should be as a result of it. And so, give me a second, y'all. Okay, I had to focus on, otherwise my phone's gonna start blowing up. And so the simplicity was the brilliance. Just do the webinar, do the training, walk people through the process so that they understand what they get out of it for themselves. That was number one. The other part of that was just like, I feel like many people are waiting on like this magic and pyrotechnics and all these things in order to be like, okay, like it must be something new. It must be something else as to why this process or my process or your process or whatever expert's process is not working. We're waiting for Jedi mind tricks, right? But guys, the basics work. The foundational stuff works. The old school stuff works. All of this stuff that we learn today are derivatives of like the old school stuff, right? Like the Dan Kennedys, the Jack Canfields, like, and even further gurus back from that. Like, none of this stuff is new because it doesn't have to be new. What has to be new and current is consistency. And so like that second thing that was mind-blowing in the most simplest way is that for years, this man, his team, his wife have been consistent. Like consistently putting out content, consistently putting out really good content, consistently putting out like community content, right? Like it's just available to the community. And by doing so, they're actually showing you that they can help you by helping you. Novel concept, right? Again, simplicity here. And so I'm reading my notes of the post that I posted. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing, right? And so many of us are overthinking it instead of just running the play already. Just run the play. Just pick a process and follow it to completion and exhaustion. The colloquialism of like, what do people say? Like, understanding the assignment. There is understanding the assignment, y'all, and then there is completion of the assignment. There's understanding the assignment, and then there is completion of the assignment. And so I implementation is a thing that I preach, a lot of people preach, but a lot of people don't do. And I have been guilty of that as well, right? Like I'm going from program to program or fellowship to fellowship or webinar to webinar or course to course and thinking that it must be something else, right? And no, it's just, did you play and exhaust all possibilities with the current model that you have before you moved on to something else? Are you exhausting any and all possibilities before you move on to something else? And so many of us are so concerned with embarrassment in that first process or that first iteration that is the thing that's stopping us. And so Reid Hoffman always says, you know, if you were not embarrassed by your first iteration of whatever thing that you were building, you waited too late to start. If you were not embarrassed by the first iteration of whatever it is that you were building, you waited too late to start. And so the implementation part is interesting. When I teach, and I added this because when I teach my Monetize Your Genius challenge, you know, the process in this space is most people just immediately are ready to sell you something else. And I designed the challenge based off of the model of someone else, a mentor of mine that taught me. I designed the challenge in a way that after the 3 days, I want you to spend 2 weeks in implementation mode. Do not take any other course of mine. Don't take any course from anyone else. Literally just implement what you've learned over the course of the 3 days. Because what I've realized people are doing, and I have been guilty of that, I've had many conversations with my husband about that, is many people, what they're doing is they're going from information acquisition to information acquisition to information acquisition to information acquisition, and they think that the forward momentum is the acquisition of the information. And for some people, you know what, to a certain extent it is, because we've been closed off historically from the right information and the right access to the information. But once you get the information, you gotta do something with it. And if you don't do anything with it, it actually does not give you the transformation that you need it to do. It does not give you the results that you need it to give you. And so we cannot hold on to so much value or hold so much value in the acquisition of the knowledge without the implementation of what you've learned, so it actually gives you the intended outcomes of what you were hoping for. You cannot do that, right? And so that becomes a big hindrance to so many of us because of that very specific reason. We are not running the play, right? We're not running the play. And so let me get back to the other part. And so consistency, right? Be consistent, be consistent, be consistent. Exhaust literally all options before you move on and say it must be something else or I must need to do something else. Number 3, right? The thing that I thought was really interesting, and as a speaker, someone who's been speaking for nearly like 20 years, right? Is that he read the slides word for word. Slides were posted at the bottom and he just read them word for word. And as a speaker, I originally kind of cringed, like, oh my God, he's reading the slides for words. It's like public speaking 101. Don't do that. Excuse me. And I was just like, and then I kept watching, and there was such a flow in which he was doing it. And I was like, yes, he's reading the slides word for word, because why not? It's foolproof. You stay on script, meaning you stay on time. And it's not like this wasn't a planned process, but it worked. It worked brilliantly. He said everything that he needed to say. He ran the play. He said everything that he needed to say, and he ran the play. And so sticking to your script means sticking to your plan. And it worked. And so just stick to the script, y'all, because it works. If you put a plan together, run the play. Just run the plan again, right? All right, so number 4, almost every other slide had stick figures, right? Just stick figures. And we all understood exactly what every slide meant and every illustration meant perfectly. Y'all, stick figures will set you free. And so because the basics, it makes it much easier for the basics to just get consumed. Very easily, you can consume the basic information as fast as possible so you can do what? Run the play. And I know this is kind of hard for a lot of people because in the world of AI and Mid-Journey, where you can literally with 2 or 3 buttons and some prompts and commands, turn your words into vivid, beautiful imagery, it can become a distraction if you're just trying to get people the right information that they need so that they can go out and make more money with their products and their services and their intellectual property and their know-how. Back to the basics, run the play, right? And so, and then the last part that I thought was really cool is there was so much emphasis with people around him giving it everything away, right? Like you can get the audiobook if you listen to the podcast, and you can download like all the courses, and there was like 10 different courses, right? And the thing was, that wasn't that disruptive. Giving away free stuff is not that disruptive. People do it all the time. People do it at Costco. People do it during Halloween when they give candy away. Drug dealers do it. Like, that wasn't the most disruptive thing because it's you get to sample the product to see if it works for you. You get to sample the service to see. People have been doing it, but I think because of like this onslaught of peer-to-peer learning, which I love, by the way, I love that revolution of dismantling this hierarchy that like if the information doesn't come down from like this PhD of a person, you can't like do anything with the information. And so we're constantly waiting in this really weird cycle. So I have loved over the course of the past, really, I think 10 years, almost kind of like this democratization of education and this normalizing peer-to-peer learning and normalizing rapid acquisition of knowledge so that you can rapidly get to the solution to the problem instead of waiting or like, I love that. Literally, AKA YouTube University, right? We're watching YouTube University right now. And so, but what he did was raise the bar of what free content should look and feel like. And also by saying you can give away really good free content or community content, and it doesn't take away from what you're doing or what you're building. It actually makes you much more valuable because 1, you've put out good to the marketplace. 2, it's actually useful for people to do something with it. And the best way that you can show people that you can help them is to actually help them first. And so that's been my content strategy with Instagram for the past year and a half, almost 2 years of having like a concentrated effort. It's like, I am going to teach people like my best stuff. These are the questions that I ask. These are the kind of the insights that I have learned over the process of doing all these things. And you know what? Like, if you're good, you're always going to have content flowing through you. But if you hold on to things, right? Like, you don't allow for any creativity to flow through you again because you're holding on. There's no room. Your cup is full. And so let things flow through you. Let your best stuff flow through you because you were learning in that process. Of course, you know, speaking and all those things, it's the why, and then you maximize and you sell the how and things like that. That stuff doesn't change. But I think he raised the bar on what good quality and being a good team player and be a good global citizen around what you have learned really truly looks like. And for that, I'm forever grateful because it also made me reevaluate the things. And I've been having very interesting, really good in-depth conversations with people that are also in this space. And so the last part I will say with that is that even though he gave away so much free content, and I think at this point, there's over 1 million people who have watched the video. There were 250,000 people that were live, which was super dope and impressive. Most people will still not go through all the content. They won't watch all the videos. They won't download all the PDFs. Most people will not do so. And I think it's somewhere about like 60% of people that pay for courses and programs do not finish the content. And so it wasn't this thing that was gonna like clear out the marketplace and like disrupt everyone's business model and no one's gonna buy courses and programs anymore. Most people will just be so happy to have access to it, to reference it at whatever time and maybe never go back to it. You have other people that will jump on it and have gone through it and great, like they know exactly what to do with it. Other people have gone through bits and pieces, skipped around, they'll never go through it again, and they make up that 60% that start something that do not complete it. And then the last part is some people will say, this got me from point A to now becoming a customer or a client of his at the multi-million-dollar level, because I've taken that, I've implemented, I've run the plays, and now I'm your customer. And so it's literally community content for everyone that's not currently his customer. And for those that are, will see the immense value in which him and his team done, and they will be good, right? And so I just wanted to share some key learnings that I took away from that session. There are a bunch more as well. And then even having a conversation with my friend Odell earlier, it like imparted some really cool things that I hadn't even thought about from watching that experience. But it was definitely a game changer in a really cool way. And I think it made a lot of people level up their thinking, level up their process, because he really kind of took you behind the hood of the process. And even the quirks and things that didn't work that well, I think from an expert eye, you can see that more than most people that are not in the speaking business or in the training or information business and things like that, also took away that done is better than perfect. And as long as you super serve people and get them the thing that they need the most in order to have a transformation in their life, like everybody wins. All right, bye y'all.